This is a tutorial on how to achieve a simple parallax effect on room windows in Escape Simulator. First off, what is parallax? Parallax is a term for when objects appear to move at different speeds based on how far away they are. In video games, parallax scrolling is used to give an illusion of depth or distance. Here's an example of no parallax. This window has a flat plane face behind it. It doesn't look real at all. It just looks like a painting. To achieve a parallax effect, we can move the flat plane slightly farther away from the window. Now when we move around, the image moves at a different rate and it doesn't look so flat anymore. However, if we move too much, you can run out of image, ruining the illusion. We can try making the image a lot bigger to compensate, and it helps. But again, if you get too close, it ruins the illusion, as you can see the edges. You would need an absolutely massive image to cover the entire potentially viewable area, which isn't really ideal. However, this can be mitigated by using a half circle instead of a flat plane. For this window, I retextured the inside of a bowl. As you can see, it looks about the same as before, but no matter how close you get to the window, no seams are exposed. This could also be expanded to include multiple windows at once, if desired. Note that due to the nature of the bowl, the center window will have a greater parallax effect than the side windows because the bowl is further away in the center than at the sides. You can put whatever textures you want on the bowl and it will mostly look fine, though if you'd like to put something really far away, like mountains or stars, you might be better served by using the skybox object instead. Retexturing the inside of a bowl can be tricky, so the second half of this tutorial will show you how to do it. For this step of the tutorial, I'm going to be covering how to properly texture a bowl so it appears how you want it to look. It's not as simple as it seems, because the bowl textures are slightly weird. So for this, we're going to be using the object that is called bowl. It's just this tan bowl right here. Go ahead and plop it down. If you downloaded the texture link in the description, you can skip this step, but just for completeness, I'm going to show you how we arrived at this step. So the first thing, you're going to select the bowl. You're going to open up the textures thing and click paint. You can paint it any color, it does not matter, but you want to click this paint bucket tool to fill the entire texture map with the color. Next step is you go into the color wheel, choose any other color. We're going to just go with white. And select the paintbrush, the largest size possible, and you want to go over the whole bowl and paint it white. It might seem redundant. It'll become clear why we did this in a minute. Try and get it nice and clean. It doesn't really matter if you can't get the edges though. Just make sure there's no large splotches that are really obvious. And then when you're done, hit save and select to save your map. Control S works as well. Now that we've saved, if we open up our map folder, which can be found by clicking this texture button and this folder icon, you will see we have a texture we just made. How interesting is that? We used the paint bucket tool to fill the entire texture with black, and then the paintbrush to fill it with white. The only textures available on the bowl are here and here. This one down here is the bottom side of the bowl, and this one up here is the top side of the bowl. The rest is completely unused. So that means when we get a texture and we plunk it in here, we only need to use this specific area up here, nothing else. Now you might be wondering why we use the paintbrush instead of just slapping a texture on. Well, it's a good question. Here's what happens if you just slap a texture onto a bowl. You might expect, wrong button. You might expect, I'm going to use this texture. So since we already established that the bottom left and the top right, we might expect this bowl to be yellow on the top and purple on the bottom. But when you try it out, it's not that at all. It is green, black, white. That's not really that helpful. You probably could find the texture file in the files somewhere, but we've already done that, so get that out of here. We'll move on to using our texture next. So the next step is we're going to use that map that we just made to put a fake window texture on it. So first, open up your preferred image editing software. I'm using GIMP. You can use Photoshop or Paint.net or MS Paint or whatever you want. We're going to go and find that file. It'll have some name like right? Drag that in there. Here's our image. Next, use whatever selection tool. Just note we only need this circle up here. That's the only circle we need, so we might as well delete all the rest of it. It's not important to us in any way. It's completely irrelevant. Just get it out of there. This is our canvas, basically. Next, we're going to put in the image that we want to use. I'm going to use this random image that I found on Google. Slap that in there. Yeah, whatever. Okay. Here's our image. Notice it does not fit inside that circle. So we make it fit inside the circle. Just scale it on down until it's approximately circle sized. Doesn't need to be perfect as long as no circles outside of it. And hide that. Ta-da! Here's our image. We could be done right here. I mean, that's it. We're done. For the easy way. There's a more complicated way to do it that'll make it look a little bit better afterwards. So for now, let's just go ahead and save this. We're going to call it test image. What a great name. Okay, and save. Now we'll go back in here. Here's our test image. Now here's the important part. What you have to do is this file name, you need to replace it. So copy the file name. Go ahead and get it out of here. We don't need it anymore. And now rename test image to be that. Make sure it's also a PNG or it won't work. And so now when we go back into Escape Simulator, you'll see the bowl looks no different until we duplicate it. If we save, we lose what we have created so far. But if you create a duplicate of it, slide it over. Hey, look, it's our room in a bowl. Looks pretty good. Let's slap it on the window and see how it looks. Scale it up. Rotate it sideways. Over, up. Okay, a little bit bigger. It's about the right size. And then just orient it properly. That looks good. Whoops. And of course, make it static, as always. Wow, look at that room. Pretty neat. Looks a little warped there, but it's not so bad. From here anyway. Looks decent. If that's all you want, you're done. You can click off now. To make the image look a little bit better, in my opinion, you can map the image to a sphere before you texture it onto the thing. This is a step I don't think you can accomplish in MS Paint, though you're welcome to try. So for the next step, we're going to be going back into the image editing program and trying again. Delete whatever you had. We're going to be just starting over, except for the guide image, of course. So let's try converting this a little bit differently this time. So instead of cropping it down, we're going to be going into the filters menu, selecting map, map object. If you're in Photoshop, I don't know where that is. I'm sure you can figure it out. And we're just going to make sure it's set to sphere and hit OK. Now that image has been mapped onto a sphere, which looks distorted here, but it would look much better on the bowl. We just gotta clip off the sides. I mean, we don't really have to, but it's easier to work with. And make sure I'm selecting the right thing. There we go. I don't know how this crap is, so. There, we did the same thing as before, but this time it's mapped to a sphere. Again, this isn't perfect. There's still a better way to do it, but I'll show you this is a step up. So we're going to export this as test image 2. because we're fancy now. Step into here. Where's test image? Oh, I see. I've stepped out of it. Okay, test image 2. We're going to do the same thing we did before. Just copy this, delete it. We don't need it anymore. Place this here. And now when we make a duplicate of our bowl for another window, slide this one over here. Actually, let me just make a second window here so we have a side-by-side comparison. So now we have our original bowl, which looks pretty good up straight, but on the sides things get warped because it's a bowl, and our retextured bowl where it does not get warped on the side. Now you might have noticed that the original image is a lot larger than the retextured image. That's what I was talking about. We can do this better. This is just a starting point. You can see there is no more warping no matter how close you get. Well, for the most part, it looks a lot less warped. So if you want to squeeze a little bit more depth out of this image, that is, you notice the farthest you're able to see on the side of this image is, this side of this pillow, for example. This is a good benchmark. Side of this pillow. If you want to squeeze out more, because if you look on the original image, you will notice that there is, in fact, a bit more of the image than just that. We stopped about here. There is a picture and a window and stuff. We want to be able to see all of this, or at least most of this. Get a little bit more out of it. You can do that. We're going to go back to our image editing program and slap the thing in there once again. So I have this in there. There's 2 ways you can really go about this. You need a square image. A square is all, approximately a square is all you'll ever be able to fit onto a sphere. So this image is slightly rectangular, which means we'll lose a little bit from the sides, or we'll have black bars on the top and bottom. You can choose what you want to do, or you can distend your bowl so it's not a problem in the first place. It's really up to you what you want to do, which means you'll have a non-spherical bowl, you'll have a oval-shaped bowl, which is fine. So we're going to try and fit this whole image onto a sphere. So first step, we're going to expand our image out a little bit so we can see what we're working with. Next step is we need to make the image twice as wide as it is tall. In GIMP, to do that, we'll go to the layer selection, layer boundary size. Look at how tall it is, or how wide it is right now. It's 1050. We need to make it twice that. Or if you want to keep the entire image, make it twice as wide in general. So we're gonna settle for losing a little bit of the side, so we're just gonna do 2100, which is twice the height. Make sure to slide your image into the center of the frame using, math, or apparently I can't do math. Whatever. So yeah, it doesn't have to be perfect, just approximately in the middle of the image, your size. Now, we're gonna resize the canvas again, just for look's sake. This is what we're going to map onto the sphere. So let's go ahead and do that now. Map object onto a sphere, just like before. Nothing's changed. Now our sphere is kind of lopsided, which is fine. It's totally fine. We're going to squish it down using the scale tool. So go ahead and click on it. It's 2100 wide, and we want it to be only half that. Seems kind of weird, but there we go. So now we've done that. Next step, we're going to trim around the outside just like before and slide our sphere on top of here. Make sure to select it, and then we're going to squish it down a little bit more. Probably like this much or so. A little bit more. There it is. that much. Oh, it's still too big, but yet again, like I said before, it doesn't need to be perfect. Just mostly is good. And now I've got it. Anchor the layer, delete old layers. And lastly, this is important. When you export it, you need to make sure that your image is the proper size. So we're going to crop this layer and then recrop the entire image to this layer. There's probably some other way to do that. I'm not a GIMP expert. That way, when we save the image, it's the proper dimensions, so everything will line up. So we're going to call this amazing test image, because it's going to be amazing. We will jump into Escape Simulator. No, we'll jump into the file. Here is our previous image. And here's our amazing test image. You can compare, just looking, the previous test image. You can see it's a little squished compared to this one. So we're going to do just like before. Copy that, delete the old one. You can save the old one if you really want to. Now back into Escape Simulator. When we copy and drag this over, we'll have a different texture on the bowl. So let's see how it looks. This one, when you're looking at it straight up, you cannot see the whole window. This one, you can see the edge of the window. If we walk as close as we possibly can and look to the left, again, the side of that pink pillow is all we can see. Can't even see the edge of the railing or the window. Whereas on this one, we can. We squeezed out a little bit more. We can see the edge of the pillow. A whole painting became visible to us. It's equally, about the same level of distortion, but we got the mapping a little bit smoother to make more bang for your buck on the image. They're both going to give a decent parallax effect. So if you want to spend only a little bit of time, just go ahead and slap an image on there, map to sphere, call it a day, or find a more zoomed out image. This is if you have an image you really like and you want to make it look as good as possible, use a second method involving all that extra work we just went over. And that's basically how you get a parallax effect on your windows that looks pretty decent overall compared to just a flat painting. Hope you enjoyed.